Hi Year 5! This week in your SPaG work you'll be looking at prefixes and suffixes. So let's start with prefixes. Prefixes are a group of letters that change the meaning of a word when they're added to the start of a word. The prefixes always come at the start. So for example, if you added the prefix un to the word usually, it would turn it from something that happened a lot to something not being usual, so not happening regularly. These prefixes often have the same meaning or similar meaning when they're added. So for example, un means not. So for example, unhappy or unlocked or unfair. Dis or miss usually have negative meanings. So for example, disagree, disobey, misbehave or mislead. Re usually means again or back. For example, redo, reappear or redecorate. While sub usually means under, so for example subheading, the heading that comes under the actual heading, or submarine, which means under the sea. So let's work through some examples. Choose the correct prefix to go in front of this word, something marine. To be able to answer questions like this, try putting each prefix in front of the root word to see which one makes sense. So for example, is it miss marine, pre-marine, re-marine, or submarine? Now once you've tried each of those prefixes in front of the root word and decided which one makes sense, you should have identified that the one that made sense was sub, making it submarine. Moving on now to suffixes. Suffixes are similar to prefixes, except for they come at the end of a word. Sometimes as well, they can change the spelling of the root word. So for example, drop plus the suffix ed will turn it into dropped. Now they have a range of jobs. You can add ing to the end of a root word to turn it into a verb. For example, from garden to gardening, which is obviously a doing word. Or if you added the suffix ed to the end of a root word, it would put it in the past tense. So for example, walk to walked. So let's practice. Which suffix can we add to the end of this root word? Paint. Is it ment, ing, ly, or est? Similarly to when we did it with the prefixes, try each suffix at the end of the root word to see which one makes sense. So is it paintment, painting, paintly, or paintest? After putting all of those suffixes at the end of the word paint, you should have identified that the suffix that would go at the end would be ing, making the word painting. We're going to go over some spelling rules now that are linked to the suffixes. So one of the main suffixes that change spellings of words is the suffix ly. You've done a lot on this throughout your school years in your spellings. So the rules are, if the root word ends in a y, you have to swap that y for an I before adding the ly. So for example, happy, which ends in a y, you have to swap that y for an I before adding the ly, turning the word into happily. The second rule is if the root word ends in an IC, you need to add ALLY, not just LY. For example, it would turn the word magic, ending in IC, to magically, adding the ALLY to the end. The third rule is if it ends in LE, you need to swap the LE for LY, so take off both letters. So for example, terrible, turning into terribly. And the fourth rule is quite simple. If it doesn't apply to any of the top three rules, just add ly, don't change anything. Now the next rule that we're going to look at is a short vowel sound rule. So if the vowel at the end of the root word sounds short, so when you say it out loud it feels short in your mouth, you need to double the consonant at the end before you add the suffix. So let's work through some examples of these. For the letter A, the sound A, if it is a long vowel sound, it will make an A sound. So for example, trained. As the A sound is a long sound, it sounds like it's being dragged out, you don't need to double the letter N, you can just add the suffix ed. However, if it has a short vowel sound like grab, you can hear that the a is quite short coming out of your mouth. If that's the case, and that's the sound that you have, you need to double the B, double the consonant, before adding the suffix, turning it into grabbed. Another example is beat. The E sound is a long sound, therefore you don't have to double the T. But if you have bed, so b-e, rather than E, you would have to double that D to make it into bedding. If you have night, the I is a long sound, so n-I-t. Therefore, you don't have to double the T before you add the suffix. Whilst if you had knit, which is spelt quite similarly, however the I sound you can hear is short, you have to double that T before you add the suffix. If you have boat, b-o-t, the O sound is a long sound, so you don't have to double the T. But if you have mop, m-op, you have to double that P before you add the suffix. And finally, if you had droop, d-r-oop, that's a long sound, so you would not have to add the second